Welcome. This is the February 19th OpenZFS production user call. We have Alexander, Stu, Steve, Jan, Greg, Rob, and myself, Michael, and we have a number of developers and developer topics. Welcome, Alexander and Rob. One thing that came up in a conversation with Andrew Walker was that OpenAT2 is missing in FreeBSD. Is there anyone who can enlighten us on what it does? Mav, it sounds like you knew something about its flags.
No, it's not exactly my best area, but I have a feeling
No worries.
OpenAT2 on Linux was added to support additional flags to manage UnionFS, or what's it's called on Linux, to specify what to do about those whole files or special files that represent the file was deleted at this location. And there are several flags that you needed to manipulate those, but I may be wrong, but probably not
And no
perfect person
worries.
to.
Yeah, no worries. Well, that's a good point
So
in the right direction. Yeah, Jan, do you know something?
I'm looking at the Linux main page for OpenAT2. It's a superset of the normal OpenAT system call with the additional argument how and says so yeah. And this struct how contains, among others, the options to set something called resolve in root. Okay, and then yeah, you can disable following what they call magic link resolution, disable symlinks, don't cross file systems, and that you only want to resolve already cached names, apparently.
Do you have a handy link for that?
The old main page as
Oh,
hosted
from your
on,
site of choice.
yeah,
Cool.
they're not the most up to date, but
Got it. Thank you. Cool. So anything else on that brief little topic?
Probably just that if it's a big collection of OpenAT2's, yeah, it's a big collection of like extra flags and toggles and switches, and it's probably better to talk in just for FreeBSD. It's probably better to talk in terms of the specific function or functions that you want rather than
and
can we
I was
have all
gonna
of OpenAT2? Because some of it
right,
probably
cherry
makes
pick
no
a few
sense. It's like
perhaps.
yeah, maybe, or maybe it's better done a different way or whatever. So it's usually better to talk in terms of what what function do we want to be possible rather than
yeah,
could we
I
have a
don't
whole system call?
I don't see any reason why this is something for ZFS to worry about until FreeBSD has that system call. So it's not like FreeBSD needs to get the system call just because ZFS exists on both Linux and FreeBSD, because it just allows processes running on Linux more
Yeah,
control about how to open files. And if FreeBSD doesn't implement that functionality, we can still share tools. That's not a problem
well, yeah,
because it doesn't
it's
change your
not
on-disk data.
well, no, it doesn't, but it's I without having a specific thing to talk about, I don't know exactly, but it can be a thing of like, well, we're not going to implement this switch in the kernel if none of our file systems support it. So then it becomes a bit chicken eggy. So it's interesting in that it's interesting to ZFS or to some ZFS developers like
I,
me. If it means a bit like what
Mhm.
a bit like what Olivia's work with uh, uh, UnionFS and
Mhm.
me sort of hanging around, even though UnionFS is a FreeBSD thing, is because
So
yeah, well, I would like ZFS to support it well, and hopefully that motivates both sides to do something interesting. So it can be, but again, it
so
starts off by having a use case. It starts off by saying this
for
is
Right.
what we want to
It
do.
was in the
FreeBSD, the
context of
most
Samba, but I don't have details. Go ahead, Jan.
for FreeBSD, the most realistic use case I can imagine is some application someone cares about requires it, and so it has to be added to the Linux ABI kernel module to run existing Linux binaries, expecting the system call to work. And then all the relevant file systems have to expose enough control so that the VFS can implement it.
Point.
Or the other reason is that some application we want to compile, let's say something like Samba, really requires that, then we may have to implement this or something very similar to it so that you can emulate it in user space or map it to that new function in user space so that we can run this application. Samba would be one of the usual suspects for depending on new ways to use paths and file descriptors with their VFS because they have to do slightly unnatural things to POSIX systems to efficiently provide the SMB semantics.
I will prompt for Andrew for specifics on if it's one key flag that we're missing or if it's a whole basket of them. So thank you very, very much for exploring that ever so briefly. And speaking of chickens and eggs, Rob, thank you for the animated discussion last week about libzfs core stability. It sounds like you might have some updates.
Sorry, I'm just about to choke.
Oh, please don't choke.
There we go. I'm just in the middle of just finishing my breakfast, so the crusty toasty bit. Yeah, only a little bit. I've looked into why it's hard to use. So basically, starting with Jan's work and sort of trying to tease that apart. So yeah, when you include libzfs core, it tries to include another couple of files which are not installed. And libzfs core.h is included in FreeBSD base, but the things that it needs to actually be included in a program are not in base. So in some respects, that is a FreeBSD packaging bug, but also because it doesn't include enough. But what I've been doing is basically paring it down to the minimum. So I've got a PR in at the moment that with OpenZFS that fixes one small thing. It basically just brings one header into another so that there's one less file that will need to be included. And I've got a couple of other changes that I'm still working on. I haven't had much time for it. My expectation is that for libzfs core itself, it will hopefully get down to 3 headers that are needed. I still have a couple of little things to look at. Once it's in OpenZFS, I will then send a patch through to FreeBSD to make sure the right headers are included. It's going to be a little bit fiddly because it's going to be somewhat version dependent on OpenZFS, but like that's just a transitional thing. Once we get that done, it'll be good for into the future. So I would hope that it'll be a pretty minor change. So I would hope that by 15, the base system you can include libzfs core.h and it will do what you want. The Linux packaging is different, and for the moment, like it's fine. There is a single if you use the most both vendor packaging of OpenZFS and the packages that we generate have a single ZFS devel package, which includes probably too much, not too little. So it has everything that's needed in there. That doesn't mean it can't be improved, and I'll be trying to improve that in the same sort of along the same lines. But yeah, so that's a path to making it possible to use at all.
I don't. Okay.
I'm going to
Is that
mute
someone's background
you,
noise? I'm sorry.
Greg, in case it's you. Maybe it's you, Rob. Cool. And Alexander, I would love to hear your experience from the IX side, where it looks like I don't know if you're leveraging libzfs core or you've simply stuck with libzfs Python because it was the more stable option over the years.
We recently took another look on the future development perspectives, and we looked briefly on core, and since obviously it would be good as having more stable, clean API, but we found that it's just incomplete. There are still science practically for every call it uses one ioctl. One syscall, yeah, there should be ioctl there, but their list is pretty small, and it already misses some arguments. And we found that we would need to significantly extend it, and we'll spend a lot of time on that front. So at this point, since we don't really care so much about stability, since through us we build as one product and we control the versions and upgrades, we went other way. We previously used always Python wrapper, pylibzfs. I have a feeling there are maybe two ones existing in world, one somewhere around OpenZFS, and one is ours in our Trinos repo. So right now we are working on complete rewrite of our pylibzfs from scratch without citing native Python, and it should be much cleaner than the previous one. But yeah, that just tells that we will stuck with libzfs, traditional one, not core, just for better functionality and potentially suffering from IP stability.
Do you have do you happen to have notes on that kind of stuff that maybe could be shared with us? What you found missing?
No, I don't have specific notes, but I remember just looking on the code, there was number of to do. It's more like question, what does it actually has rather than what it hasn't.
It gives access to basic data set management functionality. It doesn't expose any pool management functionality at all. And what is not directly implemented is iterating over data sets, properties, and so on. Instead, you have to do those things via a channel program, which works and is stable if this channel program API is stable, but which it is so far, as far as I know. But yeah, if you really just want to enumerate using the proper ioctl instead of running a channel program, probably has a little less overhead. Funnily enough, if you want to use channel programs, even the ZFS commands use libzfs core for that, because there is no helper to deal with channel programs in libzfs that only exists in libzfs core. So yeah, bit strange.
Well, I mean, a lot of libzfs is built on top of libzfs core, so it's not.
No, it's supposed to be the other way around, more or less. That libzfs is built on top of libzfs core in some way.
Well, libzfs core directly calls kernel ioctl.
Yeah.
It doesn't depend
Yes.
on libzfs.
Yeah, libzfs calls into ZFS core for the super low level stuff, including the ioctl call into the kernel. It just does. Alexander, do you have any sense of if there's anything significant out there using libzfs core in its current state? And the reason I ask is because there is a desire for some kind of stable API, and I've been thinking about, do I spend the time trying to build out what's in libzfs core, or do I like almost go and do something else off to the side, or what? And part of that is informed by how stable does the current API need to be. But I have absolutely no visibility onto that. You might know a bit more. Do you have any idea about that?
Generally, a whole idea of having that core to have stable API, but if you're asking what software may already use current one if you want to break it, Honestly, I don't know. I don't think we use it for anything, but
I can't
maybe
imagine anyone's using it for anything significant because got it's got so few functions in it. It barely does anything. Yeah.
yeah, I
So
agree with that part. So that's as I've told, we tried to look at it and found that it's more like not there rather than there.
Interesting. And
yeah,
that's kind of the chicken and egg issue. It's not providing what people want. It's not stable. Well, no one uses it, obviously. So here we are. Uh, hmm.
yeah. All right,
Does this
I'll
suggest
keep
there might
playing.
not be any
Sorry, go
meaningful users of it
I
beyond
mean,
GFS internally? I'm just curious now that you said
I,
that, made that statement. Go ahead. And
I know I took a look at it and because I wanted to use it and found that it wasn't going to be usable for what I wanted to do.
hmm,
And I ended up just shelving the project because
yeah, that sucks. Yeah. All right. I'll keep thinking about it because I might write some little toy programs and just to do different things and see how far I can get with them and yeah, I do think something like that is needed. I mean, something I've been thinking about as well. I said maybe it should be maybe we could do a separate thing entirely. It because some of our conversations have been, not just missing headers, but missing types. Different, we've talked about different languages. We've talked about licensing a little bit, and regardless of whether I think there's problems or not, perception is everything. And so I
I
started
mean,
thinking about, well, what if there was a separate project, so away from, adjacent to, but not part of ZFS, which is, like a single header and a single C file that you drop into your application, and it it talks to the kernel module directly, and it provides all the pieces that you want, um, and it provides particular stability guarantees around certain versions of ZFS. So it would basically, I'm looking at this from like a programmer's perspective. What makes this thing easy to use? And the answer is, it's easy to plug into your project. It's easy to, it has, an API that makes sense, so it has a data model that makes sense and whatever else. And it can say, this will definitely work. Is that, and maybe it does things like it converts NV lists into something more understandable to a regular programmer, um, internally, so you don't have to deal with that stuff. You just deal with your objects or whatever. Maybe it comes with bindings for different languages, so that you can drop this thing into any language and those kind of things. I'm sort of vaguely thinking down that direction, but that
did the Python library attempt to do that, or is it the closest thing yet?
honestly, I have no idea.
Maybe you've never
I
worked with that. I don't
don't.
know.
I haven't. I mostly try to avoid it because it's not really clear to me how it connects up with the rest of ZFS. In a different world, I'd probably have it in a different repo, but I'm not pushing that cart.
as far as the original question goes, are there any consumers of libzfs core? And, if Jan's saying that libzfs core is what's providing a lot of the interface necessary for channel programs, that implies that then at least the user space ZFS function programs are using it to some degree.
Got it.
So that would be like
Oh,
the one consumer.
yeah, well, yeah. I mean, yeah, definitely. I guess my question is more: are there any non-ZFS and maybe non-FreeBSD users? Because those we can easily change. Like, and by that I'm thinking like VE control. I don't know exactly what it uses, but those things were easily changed if we need to. But if there's I wouldn't want to make a bunch of changes and there's actually a very quiet cottage industry in like, I don't know, bioinformatics. There's always bloody bioinformatics who have these, enormous sets of tools and interesting stuff and never quite make it back across. But yeah, some world where they're like, oh no, you broke all our tools because we were really dependent on that.
I mean, in its current state, I agree with what else has been said. I'm not sure anybody can be dependent on it, at least not alone.
Successfully.
Great.
So basically, at the very least, two headers are missing from a normal FreeBSD installation. So you can't build against libzfs core without checking out the base sources, but or more specifically the kernel sources. And without that, you have to bring those headers either yourself, which is allowed by CDDL, according to my understanding. But this is an intentional feature of CDDL. Yeah. So
yeah, no, that's I'm working on getting the header stuff sorted, as I said before.
So you would be
And we
hard
thank you
pressed to
for it.
find any consumer of libzfs core outside of the FreeBSD base because ports are normally built without kernel sources available. So
that's in FreeBSD.
Yeah,
That's in
on FreeBSD. So any port
For
which
sure.
wants to be buildable and not get caught by the linters and so on, depending on those headers, would have to declare in its makefile metadata that it depends on kernel sources.
Yeah.
So that should be a very short list to check if any port in the whole FreeBSD ports tree potentially depends on libzfs core. I assume the set is empty. And that means from FreeBSD's point of view, the only FreeBSD specific consumer of libzfs core I can think of is the boot environment control command, which is already in base, so it has those sources always available.
Right.
And its makefile is a mess because it pulls in the headers from where they happen to be checked out and not where a header belongs. So yeah, it basically pulls in the whole pretend you're on a Solaris userland header in its include path before the system headers.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
Which is
Mav,
messy.
Alexander, it sounds like you would use libzfs core if it was full featured, but it's just never has been, and that's justified both using and heavily investing in the Python one and investing again soon, it sounds like.
No, we already was using libzfs through Python wrapper for years.
Okay.
This wrapper was written in a terrible way, and we were looking a way to fix that. So at this point, we're already investing into rewriting from scratch PyLibZFS, our version, or whatever it will be, probably orthogonal new one. But so I'm not sure we'll be ready to jump to anything else for no reason. But if it will be great and shiny and everything, sure, I guess.
Cool. As developers, do you have any news to share, projects you're working on, upcoming features, other tantalizing things, given that we've just had a very impressive recent release?
I created recent PR actually before vacation a couple of weeks ago, but so far haven't got any reviews, so still looking for to balance vdev utilization. On GitHub, let me look. It's actually unified allocation throttling. It's called 17 or 20. So in which I am trying to unify how to balance both vdev space usage with vdev performance. Because right now we have two controversial mechanisms fighting each other, and really performance one wins. So the faster device likely will get the most of data, while I'm trying to make it more reasonable. So if somebody wants to take a look, I have some nice graphs there. There are some tests, and looking for any comments so far. Received none. But I would really like
Do you have a link you can drop in the chat, or I'm trying to
I
find the
cannot
PI.
drop it, but 17.020.
17. Okay, cool. Uh,
Yeah. I really need to spend a day on code review, and I ask for too much review and I don't do enough. All right, that's on my screen now. I'll have a read of that.
Cool, cool. So it's on your radar. Other exciting features now that things like the, RaidZ expansion arrived and so many JSON arrived, all those, wow. So hopefully they'll be here in our lifetimes, and they're here in our lifetime. So any other, oh, cool. I should have that full URL shortly because it's the same as the last one. I think 2 digits different. Other cool features coming. 020. And here's the full URL.
I have a question.
Yes, jump in.
That these two may have some input on. So there was a little bit of work on some Rust bindings at the summit, and I'm wondering if anybody is seeing any Rust bindings pop up out in the world.
Not really. And I think again, it's because there's not much to bind them to. As we've been saying. There is some Rust work going on. I know that I think a couple of organizations are quietly doing stuff with Rust around OpenZFS, but not open source as far as I know, and not but nothing much happening in ZFS itself. So I think it would be cool that it's to do stuff in ZFS with Rust, but it's a pretty big sort of bootstrapping. It takes a lot to get started, and it's hard to know for
Can you
what.
describe your use case? You have several Rust apps and you'd like to just bolt on ZFS or vice versa? Nice graphs.
Isn't ZTop written in Rust?
I don't know. Can you paste a link to that, Jan?
Give me a second.
I'm not familiar with that one. My use case is really just that Rust is a little easier, is more accessible to me, sort of to innovate with. And, I see a whole lot of potential in ZFS to solve certain types of problems. So I've just have an eye out looking for, did someone do some work to make that a little easier for me, or do I need to wade in and do the hard work?
As far as the Rust bindings go, and the work that was done at the Dawn conference, summit. That's the word I was looking for.
Indeed.
Wasn't that put out there on GitHub or something similar? I mean, I don't specifically remember where they put it, but I thought they actually made it available. So, I mean, we should be able to track what's going on with it, and if they've continued to commit to it.
It was Paul Dagnelli, I think, and but I don't know where. He did say he was going to post it, but I don't know where to look for it.
Okay.
Maybe I'll just send him an email and ask him. Yeah.
Yeah, send him an email, or I can ask him. So,
I just looked it up. ZTop was written in Rust by Alan Summers.
Yeah, I think it scrapes it either scrapes the ZFS tools or it scrapes the K-stats, right? It doesn't.
Yeah,
I mean that's not nothing. Yeah, that's not nothing. Don't get me wrong. But
it runs normal ZFS command line tools.
Yeah.
And then parses their output. that would be a strong argument for making a better API available than running
Exactly.
the bits
For me, I
into
look at that.
text and back.
Yeah, any program that does that is like a declaration that OpenZFS has failed them, in my opinion, because you shouldn't have to do that. But yeah, not ZTOP's a failure, to be very clear.
Well, no, you're saying OpenZFS has failed ZTOP.
Yes, OpenZFS
That's a
has
very
failed
different
ZTOP.
statement.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I get to say that because I work in it and I'd like to say it better. But I'll post this. So I'm typing slowly on my phone here. Just this is for people who specifically know Rust. This is a thing I haven't worked on for a while.
Ooh.
But this is mine. This is the start of an attempt to make something basically like libzfs core, but purely in Rust. So it's not a binding to libzfs core. It calls the ioctls directly. It's unusable for almost everything, but there are some examples. If you know, I'm not going to explain it. If you know Rust and you know how to run examples and stuff, they should just build. And they do things like show you what, a basic ZFS list or ZPL status might look like. And there's also a little UI in there that presents IO stat as two little graph lines, so you can kind of watch pull activity scroll across your screen. So I'm not suggesting that this is going anywhere. I haven't touched it for over a year, but it's the kind of thing if I wanted to play with some ZFS Rust stuff, you are welcome to it. And if you turn up, I would love to help. So there's that.
So
it looks
that is
like
awesome, and thank you.
I just looked into the into the ZTOP code, and it looks like, at least on FreeBSD, it uses kstat.zfs sysctls to
Nice.
repeatedly pull the counters without any help from libzfs, any headers or whatever. It just has baked in knowledge about where ZFS exports counters as sysctls on FreeBSD. And I don't know if it also uses that to enumerate the datasets or what it does there. Because you can kind of reverse the available datasets from the object sets if you know that's nasty. They show up as kstat.zfs.pool name and then dataset and then object set dash and then some hex number dot and then the
yeah, they're a nightmare. Working on it.
and that's just the ones which aren't marked as binary and so don't show up in a default listing.
Yep.
I suspect because it's quite common in kstat to have binary sysctls which normally don't show. So yeah, it could even be that it looks into some kind of blob there. Whoa.
Yep. Anything that sucks in ZFS, I probably have a prototype.
Wow.
I'm just thinking, I do. I have the start of a rewrite of all of the stats. I'm not promising anything. I'm just saying, holy shit, I know how bad it is. I'm so sorry.
Well, we thank you for it. Any questions for our developers on the line so we can free them up? Well, thank you for all of your work. Do think about if there are opportunities for maybe an actual concerted effort to clean up libzfs core, possibly with funding from various sources. But I know we're all meeting our own needs as possible within the confines of what we have, and here we are. But looking long term. I'm glad, Rob, you look at those rough edges and think of what little proof of concept could help express the problem and help possibly get some input and excitement. Well, thank you, Rob and Mav. You're absolutely welcome to stick around. I'd like to just get through the other little ideas here. Steve, it sounds like you found your OpenZFS DKMS RPM.
Yeah,
Fedora,
thanks.
and go
Yeah,
ahead.
thanks for the 1-2 punch from Jan saying, "Hey, check out DKMS," and then Rob saying, "Here's a plain English explanation of what's going on there." And actually, all the documentation already existed. I just hadn't found it, so works great.
Come to
No
the right
problem.
place.
Awesome.
That's
Jan, you
Linux for
mentioned
you.
BECTL, indeed. You mentioned BECTL, and then it looks like, Alexander, you're looking at working on a description for it. Maybe we segue right there for a sec. If you're in a position to talk. Alexander, the other Alexander is Z, not M. Wait.
Yeah, I'm here.
Yeah, tell us about your description rewrite.
So the I've been working. This is a draft. I've been working on rewriting the description for the BECTL man page because I think BECTL is a killer feature in FreeBSD. So I want to make that more accessible. It doesn't currently have any examples, and I thought that I was a little bit challenged with the description. So after I read tons of good articles and stuff about BCTL, I just made this little description. I think it's a little bit better, and I put I marked up the commands as command modifiers. They're a little bit bold, and I thought that was kind of nice. It shows up nicer in Xorg. Here I have a picture of the Xorg.
Yeah, so far you've got a phone screenshot.
Yeah, that's
You okay?
that's all I've got today.
No worries. And to whom it may concern, I tried to use BECTL on a second pool because I was crafting one and have its nested mount unmount was quite nice. And Jan and I have discussed this quite a bit, but it would sure be nice if BECTL could be pointed pretty much at any pool and do all that kind of nested mount unmount. But maybe I'm asking too much. It just assumes that it's the boot pool. It's always the boot pool. And I will try to shrink that down. Maybe I should crop it. Well, there's a taste of what he's got. I might delete it
One of
there.
the problems, if you want to do it correctly, you don't just have to target the pool, you potentially have to target the boot code as well in some way.
Mhm.
Especially if you want to use it to have boot environments in different pools and basically say next time boot from a different pool is something very different.
Oh, very different, but this is to prepare a pool for another system on a primary system. So now that
Oh, you can
plus
use -R for that.
oh, it'll do that and it'll not say, hey, this is not the main pool.
Yeah,
Okay.
-R before the subcommand overrides that.
Oh, cool.
So it used to have this big paragraph about that in the description, but I really didn't like that. So I put it in description section, but then when I told Kyle about it, he very diplomatically said that it was a bit anemic for his taste. So
Okay.
I do want to work that back into there somehow. Yeah.
Cool. Well, I swear I looked at the manual page and that was not obvious. So thank you for any effort to clean that up. Appreciated. And for
Yeah,
what
I
it's
mean, I had
worth,
to
go
ask
ahead.
the author how it worked,
Oh, cool. Well, oh, there you go.
but he was awesome. He was totally responsive.
Great. I will share this PR simply because it came up on the Enterprise Working Group call a few hours ago. And let's see, Samba Panic, async open timeout from 2025, from quite recently. I don't know if this is on anyone's radar yet, but here it is to at least get on your radar.
I had a VC the other day with guy who's like manages the infrastructure of some very, very popular websites under NDA, and he said that his biggest pain point with our system was Samba updates. So I haven't really relayed that to anyone yet because it's like I'm like, I feel like I need to have some kind of actionable proposal. Like maybe there could be a Samba reviewers group on Fabricator. I don't know, but
Yeah, you're not wrong, and some of us kind of live and die by it, so it's been frustrating, and hence topics like be it the shadow copy integration, be it basic functionality, be it all the like versioning, and on and on. It sounds like Alexander Moten, you've had to just choose your own path and hire staff to keep Samba alive and well, like a European sports car, for your purposes. Welcome, Dan.
Mentioned Andrew Walker does a lot of things.
He does. And Dan L. Cool. So, what else? Does anyone else have topics, questions? Dan, you've just rolled in. Is that in response to one of these hot topics? And then broadly, developers, does this mean the next release of OpenZFS will likely be performance improvements, not feature adds, heavy lifts there, but spit and polish? I don't know.
We still have several open issues about Direct.io. One of them should be already fixed, but needs to merge into stable branch. But there are a few still open. So maybe that will be the main node.
Cool.
Yeah, there's a lot happening. There's just not much very visible or groundbreaking happening.
Understood.
At the moment, it is still fairly early in the cycle though. So,
do we know if the Delphix alumni have I don't know, unveiled some new effort either with them as a team or separately? Or are they all taking breaks?
I've not heard.
Likewise.
I know where some of them are, but I haven't heard any. Heard if anything is happening.
Cool.
New.
Well,
any other topics, or shall we call it good?
Hey, what was the one that, since we have the ZFS masters here, what was that one that we had the other day where we were all reading the man page and we were all struggling with what it was and we didn't really understand it?
I know what you mean, and let me scroll down to it. It was not clear what the behavior was. So yeah, Mav, maybe you have some ideas.
Was it a hidden property?
No, it was something that should be obvious, but it was not. Destroy-D or something. Let's see.
Yeah, that's the one, I think.
That's what's ringing a bell. I had a rollback issue why I couldn't roll back a snapshot to 0. It was always 8K, which created replication issues, but no, it was we looked at the manual page, we all kind of pounded our heads against it and failed. So let's see, I think it was destroy-D that was waiting for all clones or something, or holds to go away, or what the heck was it? Okay, here we go. We can do this. We can do this. Here we go.
I have a feeling there was some PR recently about -D about changing documentation to it. That's the first thing I saw. I think I saw it ever.
Oh, you did? Okay, because yeah, this deferred destroy, which the more we read about it, the less we understood about it. Let's see. And that was maybe out of Dan Langel's massive snapshot destroys that were basically paralyzing a system in unexpected ways.
I think it was related to clones. Like if you have a clone of snapshot, then you can make destruction asynchronous until the clone is destroyed. I think that was about it.
Here we go. Yes, the destroy immediately, and then the deferred destruction. And Alexander Z, you suggested maybe adding this term to clarify it, but I'm not sure. Go ahead.
So I read up and down the documentation when I encountered that, and I didn't spend much time using it, but if I understand it correctly, it sets a flag where the ZFS remembers that the user wanted to delete that, but there's still a hold on it. So this will now be auto-destroyed when the last hold on this snapshot is destroyed. Or released is the terminology.
It makes sense on both holds and clones, because either one could give you that a similar situation.
So basically, I no longer want this, but something depends on this. In the case of clones, you could promote to rearrange it, but that's annoying. And sometimes, yeah. Especially when you have two clones from one snapshot and you want to keep both clones, but no longer want the snapshot. Where do you put it? Now you have to decide. Whereas if you can leave it around and just claim that, yeah, destroy it when nobody is referencing it is cleaner and you can keep the original history and so
on. Go ahead, Mav.
I just found the PR I was mentioning a couple of weeks ago. I was right. It's 17021. Somebody MNRX added some comments, edits to the main page.
Okay, I'm loading that in another display. Let's see. Come on. There we go. Thank you for your patience. This should be it. Yeah. Oh, wrong. It didn't copy correctly. My apologies. Come on. What's that? Oh, okay. Rob, you have a rather happy face there. Let's see. Boom. It won't let me paste it for the life of me. Okay. Clarify documentation on ZFS destroy from MNRX. I hope to bring that up in just a moment here, if it will let me. Come on, computer. Okay, let's see. Get back to Word. So thank you for your patience. And while I do that, Rob and Mav, I noticed I couldn't roll back a snapshot between 8 kilobytes used, and it would just never zero out. So I had to do any send would have to be forced over it because I reversed my replication. But that's for another day. Let's look at that docs topic, given that so many of us were involved trying to make sense of it. Let's see. Here we go. I got it. Okay.
After EOB, I'll try to take a look and test that out some on the Illumos side to see how it behaves on our side, because I would expect it to behave the same.
Right. I don't recall destroy changing much since like asynchronous destroy. So deferred, here we go. Following replacement. Attempts to destroy the given snapshots will fail if clones exist. If the D is applied, the command will instead mark the given snapshot for automatic destruction when it becomes eligible. There's a new term there. Wow, mark for destruction, snapshots remain visible. I will drop this in chat. Alexander Z, your eyes as a, I guess it's committed, but your eyes as a documentation person are welcome. And there you have it. Thanks for bringing that up, Mav.
I already know this guy. I feel like
Well, 7
17021, and you can just tack that number on the earlier links. Annotation update. Great. Well, hopefully that came out of these discussions. Other topics while we're at it. Anything? Oh gosh. Fine. Go
I
ahead.
do have a topic. It may be a little bit at the edges of ZFS, but I can be quick.
I see. Well,
We're here for you.
We're here for you. Although I just want to show like Mav and Rob this. I thought I could, naively bring a snapshot back to 0K written, but it always gave me 8K. I don't know if that's normal behavior or there's some weird metadata.
That's probably happens when you modify some property.
I set them back to the originals, but because I didn't do a whole lot to them, I just want to get rid of it, or slam over it. But that was a bit strange. Anywho, okay, Steve, you had something?
So I care for an application that uses a ZFS dataset GUID as sort of a means of identifying itself because it's convenient and it's somewhat unique. However, it's not always unique because sometimes these devices will get cloned from outside, and so then obviously the GUID carries along. And I'm curious if anyone could say, hey, that seems like a silly approach. There's a better way. Look over here. It's almost like a system signature that I'm after.
And is there a re-GUID for datasets or just pools themselves?
Yes, you can get it as a property. And I think the pool GUID is the one of the root data set as well. If I don't. So you could do that. You could run zpool re-GUID and then make it your process if you have a process. But one of the nasty surprises you may eventually run into is that a GUID is only guaranteed to be unique for the lifetime of the reference object. So there's nothing in the spec, as far as I know, that prohibits ZFS from, in theory, destroying a data set and having the next one use the same GUID as the recently destroyed one. Given that it's 64-bit and there's a bunch of stuff coming into it, it's not very likely, but it's not technically impossible to have a pool reuse a GUID as far as I know.
So I think the probabilities are fine for the thing I'm doing. So this re-GUID, that's an action. I've not run into this
zpool, it's a command.
Okay.
Well, zpool re-GUID to have a pool generate a new. It's if I remember correctly, it's useful. If you just, for example, take a freeware mirror pool, rip out one disk out of every pool and force imported it on another system. Or more realistic, if you're dealing with virtual machine images.
Correct. That's where I bumped into it.
Where let's say you have a ZFS install system, or you don't want to install, you just want to take a golden image and boot it, and then all of your virtual machines would have the same GUID, which good luck when your replication scheme uses the pool GUID to identify a host or something.
Yep.
Here be dragons.
For the record, I've done the unrealistic situation. Just saying.
Cool.
If you want something even more reliable, given how frequently you need to access it, I assume it would be fine to use a user property with a type 1 UUID or something, which would then encode MAC address, timestamp, and a bit of random noise into the UUID. And unless you have a 14-bit random collision after you reset the time to the same wall clock on a system with the same MAC address, so that unless you intentionally repeatedly abuse your operating system, yeah, then it will not have reuse until the timer overflows. And it's a 60-bit timer, so.
Okay. Does that answer your question, Steve?
Absolutely.
Cool. And
A lot of good
always
stuff.
document what behavior you find and what kind of corner cases you hit, because sometimes it's just holding it wrong. Sometimes it's indeed an underlying problem. So.
And if you're using FreeBSD, it should already either read out of the hardware host UUID, or if like so many manufacturers, yours have left that field empty, generate a random one and save it. So that you have a unique system UUID. But that lives in the file system, so it lives in your root file system, so you can run in situations where that moves around if you replicate that. But it's supposed to track the installation in that case and not the hardware anymore. Yeah. Depends on what you need.
I think I have enough here to do
Cool.
some research and let you know what I
You've
find.
been
next
great
week.
about reporting back. Thank you for that. Okay. Anything else? Call it good. It's your call. Well, if someone would like the honors, let her rip.
Like and subscribe.
Thank you, everyone. Talk to you soon. Have a great one.